We just got a new pilot journal of a guy that traveled to the western side of Kalimdor, that returned and is now building the biggest fleet the world had ever seen. So this is one of those hints that has really just gone under the radar, as it seems like an Easter egg, but this might just actually be the biggest hint we had received thus far. A few weeks ago from Neltharian's library, we know that the map of Ordered Azeroth isn't exactly correct and that the Titans hid something beyond the waves. Now, in 10.0.7 we had just discovered a book from some sort of a legendary pirate that visited Pandaria while the mist was still around before we even reached it, and apparently he also sailed into the Forbidden West, the supposed other side of Azeroth, and he actually managed to return and is now gathering a crew of pirates. Furthermore, Blizzard moved Kalimdor on the actual map a bit more to the east, and as you may remember in VFA, Dragon Isles were a tiny Easter egg, but here we are right now. So what is all this new information, and are we actually set for a new pirate expansion? As gamers, we spend quite a bit of time in front of screens, and as you may know, these screens emit blue light, which can strain your eyes, it can damage them, it can really affect your sleep. But luckily, the sponsor of this video, G&G Performance, has the perfect solution. Now, I've been using these glasses for about more than a year, and they are excellent. Now, for the next 48 hours, if you use my link below, you can get up to 40% off for the next 48 hours only, so make sure to check out my link in the description below. So, as you may know, the so-called other side of Azeroth and Pirate Expansion has been really one of the biggest speculations that we've had pretty much since Classic, and this has been a super popular theory, and it seems like it might actually be picking up some steam once again, and not even some steam, quite a bit of steam in fact. Most recently, as recent as 10.0.7 is currently in PTR, we had discovered a brand new ship, a BFA Coltiran model, but without the actual Coltiran flags, and at the moment the ship is empty and it is somewhere around the northern coast. Most interestingly though, inside the ship is a book called The Return of Nightsquall, which is sort of a journal or a tale of a legendary night elven pirate, as the author says, the most successful one ever, but this guy is obviously quite biased as he actually sailed with him. Now, before we get into the context of the newly found book, let us look at some further hints, because this doesn't seem like just some sort of a BS Easter egg like those old god treasure chests that we had recently discovered, but in fact this seems like an actual setup either for a later patch of Dragonflight, but more than likely the next expansion. Now, I don't know how many of you remember, but we actually had a similar Easter egg in BFA when Vratian had mentioned the Dragon Isles and Rexar as well, but no one really batted an eye here. But right now, we are reading this document on the Dragon Isles. Even more interestingly, in the recent times, we had discovered the inside of the vaults in Forbidden Reach, and we had discovered a brand new document. This is in regards to how Azeroth was ordered, and this seems to have notes written by or for Neltharian, and it really just reshapes a lot of the old lore. This brand new document is actually all tied to propaganda that we could read previously, but now it is spiced up with a bit of juicy old god propaganda. Now, if you want all the other details, you can check out my previous videos, I covered it in great detail, but what we're looking for here is how the ordering of Azeroth was actually refuted and the entirety of the chronicle. As you may know, the Titans apparently arrived and encountered the old gods, imprisoned them, then created giants and minions in order to completely reshape the continent and to create Kalimdor as it is. What they didn't tell us though is that this mission was more than likely impossible, and more than likely that the map where Azeroth was a single continent is not entirely accurate, or it hides a few secrets. First, we can see that the Dragon Isles are not present on this map, and we know that they were isles even back in the day. However, this more than likely old god affiliated writer of these notes states that the Titans didn't order the planet as they told us, and that the guy writing their propaganda is obviously ignorant of what lies beyond the waves. Now, of course, we can speculate what this could be, but just the fact that they said beyond the waves instead of below the waves more than likely signals either a zone or a continent that is somewhere far away, somewhere related to the sea. My current theory is that this is a part of the Black Empire that the Titans couldn't actually reshape, so instead they decided to hide it, and to hide it really well. This is 100% a plausible scenario, as we have seen cloaking mechanisms all the time really in World of Warcraft, from the mists of Pandaria to, well, now the Dragon Isles that were shrouded until a few months ago. Now, if we combine this with the old lore that Blizzard had never really proven or disproven, it is even more interesting. There are a lot of super cool hints that talk about how you can't really reach Eastern Kingdoms from Kalimdor if you sail west, and those that did have never actually returned, more like they just disappeared into thin air. It is sort of a scenario where we can never really learn like what is actually there because no one had returned to tell the tale. Well, no one had returned to tell the tale until now 10.0.7 and this new crazy legendary pirate. I actually think this theory is now more likely than ever, as it really would be a bit too crazy and too much of a coincidence that we got this book and Beyond the Waves hint all really in the span of like a few weeks. So in order to not take like an hour with this video, I'm not going to read the document in great detail as it has a bunch of pages, but essentially it is a description of a night elven pirate by the name of Nightsquall, the so-called wild-eyed night elf that ran away from his forest home to join a hardy pirate crew. He was so bold and treacherous that it wasn't long until he became a captain and he had acquired his own ship, and he quite soon became quite a powerful guy. The journal states that he had reached and breached the mists of Pandaria far before the Horde and the Alliance had discovered the continent, and he made a fortune by selling kegs of Pandarian brew. Furthermore, he also raided both the Zandalari and the Kultirans, and he had never actually been caught, and it is implied that he was quite a scourge on these two isles. However, not even this was enough, as it was said that he raided the South Seas more than any captain in history, and apparently he has a gigantic stash of gold hidden on the Isle of Tel Abim, which is probably somewhere close to Kazan. Now, the guy writing this apparently sailed with the Night Elven Pirate, and he tells the greatest tale of them all. With a ton of experience and funds, Nightsquall had built a brand new, super powerful flagship and set sail for the west, where he promised he will explore everything there is to it, and he will return with a lot of plunder. Well, years has passed since that point, and everyone knew that sailing to the west was impossible, so they had just written off this guy as yet another sailor that met his match on the other dark side of Azeroth, and that he was feeding the fishes in the halls of Neptulon. However, even though years had passed, that was not actually the case, and he has just returned. He didn't say a thing, but the hulls of his ships almost burst with treasures unlike anything anyone had seen before. At the moment, he is building the biggest navy the world had ever seen, and he's recruiting all pirates and criminals from the Bloodsail to the Defiance Brotherhood. Right now, he is attacking the Dragon Isles, but as the book says, the world is ours for the taking. So it is likely that he's planning for a new expedition to the west, but this time bigger than anything ever before. Now, of course, this could just be a hint for a pirate storyline that will be happening on the Dragon Isles in Dragonflight, but it might also be a lead up into the next expansion, and I gotta say, with all the other hints, this might actually just be it. It could literally be a pirate expansion, the dark side of Azeroth. This is supposedly Old God related to this new continent, so all the other hints check out as well, because we have a bunch of Old God hints. We could maybe get a pirate class, or we could learn from this pirate and sail with our own fleets, which honestly is a lot more likely. However, I feel like if we actually sail like with Horde and the Alliance, we would find this pirate super useful, as he right now seems like the only person, as far as we know, to have returned from this west of Kalimdor. Now, before people say that we have seen the globes of Azeroth on multiple occasions in the past and there isn't another side to Azeroth, I really don't think this is a legit argument whatsoever. First, a lot of the globes are Titan affiliated, and with the recent information, it says that the Titans hid a place beyond the waves that is related to the old gods. We have seen their cloaking mechanisms on multiple occasions. It is super powerful magic. They didn't hide zones from us, regular just humans, orcs, and Tauren, but they mainly hid it from powerful cosmological forces that are their rivals that want to conquer Azeroth, especially the Void Lords. I mean, if you could see a zone from outside a planet and it was hidden, well, cloaking mechanisms wouldn't really make all that much sense. Furthermore, there is also another hint that has gone a bit under the radar. As the Dragon Isles were recently added to the map of Azeroth, Blizzard actually moved Kalimdor a bit more to the east on the overall map. While this could of course just be a measure so that the isles can fit in and the overall map isn't super cluttered, it could also be a huge hint that they're moving the continents a bit so that they can fit in a new one. It is especially telling that they mainly moved Kalimdor, they didn't actually move the Eastern Kingdoms. Now, of course, 10.0.7 isn't even out yet, but with this hint, the Old God hints, the Beyond the Waves, even the new zone Evaloran, I think this might actually have something behind it. It could be a hunch for a new patch in Dragonflight or the next expansion, as Blizzard is known to leave these breadcrumbs that they later pick up on, as we had learned with the Dragon Isles. Thank you for watching. Check out what is this new zone Azeroth by clicking on the screen, and check out Doronsmovies Academy for videos on real world history. See you next time!